In this video, I will be covering steps on how to migrate from an AeroHive HiveManager Classic account to the current HiveManager. Now, before we begin, I will be using two different terms regarding HiveManager, and I want to make sure we understand what both mean. The first is HiveManager Classic. This is referring to the old HiveManager we will be migrating from. This is the one you're currently using, and we access this by going to myhive.aerohive.com. The second is HiveManager. This refers to the new HiveManager. It was formerly known as HiveManager NG, but it has thus since been rebranded, and for the sake of this video, I will refer to it as simply HiveManager. Before we begin, let's review some prerequisites and some references. The first is to bookmark docs.aerohive.com. Here on the Docs portal, we will reference two main things. The first is the HiveManager Migration Guide, in case you need a written version of the steps we will be going over in this video. The second is the HiveOS CLI Reference Guide. We will use this for reference when reviewing a running config file of an AeroHive access point. For item number 2, we want to make sure we won't be migrating unsupported devices into HiveManager. Now, going back to the Docs portal, from any page, at the top I can click on Release Info and then Learn What's New. Scrolling down, I expanded Supported Devices and CLI Reference Guide. Here I have a consolidated list of the access points, routers, and switches that are currently supported in HiveManager. For item number 3, make sure the devices you are migrating are on at least HiveOS 6.5 or higher. This ensures they will have full manageability support. Within HiveManager Classic, I can verify my firmware from the monitor page, as well as the dashboard on the system summary, referring to the current HiveOS chart. For item number 4, we will need to create a destination VHM. This is just simply registering at cloud.aerohive.com for a HiveManager account. We will go over this in the migration steps. For item number 5, we will create a network policy before the migration. This is simply building the configuration elements and making sure they're ready to go for when we move our devices over. Now, before we begin the migration, I want to review at a high level what the steps are that we're going to be doing. Number 1, we're going to export several files from HiveManager Classic. This includes your entitlement keys, device inventory. This is an optional step, but it is nice to have a list of your device serial numbers, a running config out of an access point, and the actual VHM backup file. Number 2, we're going to create a destination VHM. We just simply register at cloud.aerohive.com. Number 3, we're going to import the entitlement keys. Now, please note your entitlement keys can simultaneously exist in both your Classic account and the new HiveManager account. So this is nice because this creates a situation to where we can move as fast or as slow as we want because the keys will exist in both accounts. Number 4, we're going to build the configuration elements within the network policy in HiveManager. Number 5, we're going to move by doing the import of the backup file. This includes your devices, your maps, your map location. And number 6, we're going to remove devices from HiveManager Classic. We need to do that so we can activate number 7, which is we change the management state of your devices within HiveManager. Now let's begin the migration, beginning with step number 1, export files from HiveManager Classic. To begin from HiveManager Classic, I'm going to click on Home, License Management, and I'm going to click the Export button. What I'm doing is I'm exporting my entitlement keys so I can import them into HiveManager at a later point. Next, we will make our backup file. So click Home, HiveManager Operations, and Backup Database. If you are on the latest HiveManager Classic, please select Backup for Migration to HMNG. This reduces the backup file size by removing all the HiveOS image files as well as the log files, which tends to make for a bigger file. If you do not see this option, please choose Configuration Backup Only. For the next step, we will go to Monitor, select all our devices. We will click Device Inventory and Export. What this does is it creates a backup file of our device inventory, specifically our device serial numbers. For the next step, we're going to obtain a running config file from an access point within our network policy. In this example, I will select our AP122. I will go to Diagnostics and Show Running Config. Now I can use this as an inventory list of all my configuration elements, and I can use this for reference later. For now, I'll just copy this and save this offline. Now we're on to step number 2, creating a destination VHM. For the second step, we will create a destination VHM. We will go to cloud.arrowhive.com. On this page, we want to click the Register option. On the registration page, we will be challenged with first name, last name, email address, job title, phone number, and country code. Please note, for partners, if you're setting up or doing the migration for a customer, you can actually enter in your own email address, which gives you a copy of the registration email so you can actually continue on their behalf. Once we've completed filling out the registration information, we can simply put a check mark in to accept the terms and conditions and click Register. We now receive confirmation that the account has been created, and we are directed to preview the email that was just sent. Going into my inbox, here I can see the confirmation email that was received. Now I'm being directed to set up a password. This will specifically be for the administrative account logging into HiveManager. Once completed with our password, click Save and Next. We are taken directly into HiveManager now. We are prompted to continue with the 30-day trial. We'll take care of entitlement keys later, so for now, just click Getting Started. Step number 3, import your entitlement keys. Now in HiveManager for the first time, please close any windows that open during first login. Next, we will go to the License Management page. You navigate there by going to Global Settings from the top right. Then under Administration, select License Management. Now we will open one of the files we exported from HiveManager Classic. It should be called Entitlement Keys Export. We will copy and paste all your active entitlement keys into HiveManager. Once entered, both HiveManager and HiveManager Classic will have the same entitlement period. Step number 4, build your network policy. Before we begin building the new network policy in HiveManager, it's important to know how to translate your settings from HiveManager Classic to the new HiveManager. I will demonstrate 2 scenarios. The first, we will compare the configuration elements in the running config we saved earlier from one of our APs to the GUI interface settings in HiveManager Classic. That way you can see how your network policy in HiveManager Classic lines up against the running config. We then can use the same concept to build the network policy in HiveManager. So here I have HiveManager Classic open and is side by side with the running config. I've broken down the config so you can see the categories such as SSID settings, DNS, user profile settings, firewall rules, etc., etc. So let's start by going into the SSID settings and seeing how things line up. Some of the things we'll immediately notice: the SSID name, the type of authentication we have, such as a WPA2 personal key. And while I'm here, I'll copy my authentication passphrase because I'll need this later on. Next, let's look at our radio rates. So here I'm looking at my 2.411 BG rates as well as my 11A for 5 gig. I can see how these relate over to my running config. So this will be nice when we go into HiveManager and we can set the same settings. Next, we will take a look at user profile settings. I will click on my user profile. I will refer back to my running config. I'm going to scroll down and look for my user profile settings and compare. In this example, I have a user profile named Coffee Shop Users, and here I can see I have an IP firewall policy enabled. This is the default guest internet access only firewall rule. So I will go into my firewall settings. I can see the firewall, and let's take a look at the configuration elements inside. So here I can see the source, destination, the service, and the action, and how they line up to the running config. This will be useful when I build my firewall rule within the new network policy. For this next exercise, let's take a look at Bonjour Gateway. So going inside, I can see my configuration elements for Bonjour Gateway and how it compares to my running configuration. But let's pretend you don't know what the command bonjour-gateway enable is. So with the CLI reference guide open, I'm going to show you how we can look those up. So I'm going to do a Control F, and what I'm going to do is just start typing in the command that I want to learn about. So I'll type in bonjour-gateway space enable. So I found the command. I will click to expand, and I will get more information about what this does. So this is going to just simply enable my Bonjour Gateway service. So let's try the next command for my running config. I'm going to search on bonjour-gateway VLAN 1-4094. However, that's a little bit too specific, so what I'm going to have to do is look for the generic entries of bonjour-gateway VLAN number. So I can see this command enables scanning for services on either a single port, a group of ports, or a range of ports. So now that we know how the config elements line up on the running config to the GUI, and even how to look them up within our CLI reference guide, we can begin building our network policy. Now with HiveManager open, let's click on Configure and Add Network Policy. I'm only doing wireless, so I want to check routing and switches. I don't have to maintain the same name for my network policy as in Classic, but for this exercise I will. I will click Save to continue. Next, taking a look at my running config, I will preview the SSID settings, and I will click Add and specify all other networks standard. Now I will match up my name. In this example, Star Pete's Coffee. I can tab and populate the broadcast name. My authentication is a standard WPA2 pre-shared key. So I will select that and enter my key value from HiveManager Classic. Next, we will recreate our user profile. So on the running config, I will scroll down and locate my user profile configuration elements. Now on HiveManager, since I'm creating a new user profile, I will click plus to begin. I had a firewall policy enabled, and specifically the predefined template for guest internet access only. I will click to select. I will give my user profile a name, Coffee Shop Users. And let's compare our configuration elements. And just like before when we were comparing Classic, I can see my source, my destination, my service, and my action compared to my running config. So I will save. Next up, we will do our radio rates. We will go to Additional Settings, Optional Settings, and click Customize. On the running config, we will scroll up. And we will locate our radio rates. Here we go. And we will just plug in the values. So we will expand our 2.4 BG. We will set accordingly. So we will trim off our 6 meg. Mark that as NA. 9. We will mark as NA. 11 is our basic, and the rest are optional. Here we will click Save Rate Settings and go into our 5 gig 11A. And we will plug in our values. So 6, 9, 12, and 18 as NA. 24 will be our basic. We will save our rate settings, save optional settings, and one more save, and we are done. We will now head over to additional settings, and we'll start with our DNS server settings. So going over to our running config, we will identify where our DNS settings are, and we will plug them in. I will begin by giving my DNS server settings a name. I'll just call this DNS-settings. Down below, I have a couple of open DNS entries, so I'm going to remove these, and I'm going to add my 8.8.8.8, followed by the 8.8.4.4. And I will save this. Next up for time, I will identify my time settings on my running config and just compare them to my NTP server settings, just making sure they're the same. And if I need to make any adjustments, I will. Additionally, here on time zone, I just make sure these two line up. And if yes, we'll go ahead and save. And this will conclude the time components of our additional settings. Next, I will enable Bonjour Gateway, as well as identifying my Bonjour configuration elements on my running config. Now, I will give my Bonjour service a name. I will call this Bonjour-settings. And my first service will be Arrowhive HTTP, followed by Arrowhive TCP. And we'll save. Followed by my third and final, Arrowhive UDP. And one final save. Now, after saving all my settings, this completes the build of my new network policy within HiveManager. Step 5, import your backup file. From HiveManager, we will go to Global Settings, VHM Management, and we will select Import VHM. We will choose Import VHM from HiveManager Classic. We will click Choose, and we will point to our backup file. Click to select, and we will click Open. Next, we will click on Import Now. So what's being imported are your devices, their host names, static IPs, maps, their locations on the maps. And as our import is now complete, we receive a message that's going to let us know, hey, we have devices both in HiveManager Classic and in HiveManager. They can't both be active at the same time, so this is going to lead us to our next step, which is where we're going to remove devices from HiveManager Classic. So what I like to do at this point is double check my maps were successfully imported. So here I can see them over on the left. And then next we'll go over to our monitor tab where we can make sure our devices have populated on our device inventory page. Step 6, removing devices from HiveManager Classic. From within HiveManager Classic, we will select the devices we will remove. We will click Device Inventory, select Remove, and we will choose to reset the devices to their factory settings, and click Yes. Step 7, change management state of your devices in HiveManager. From HiveManager on the Monitor tab, I will select all the devices, click Actions, change management state, select Manage Devices, and click Yes. Now we will wait for the devices to come online. Next, we will select all our devices, click Actions, assign Network Policy, hit the drop-down and choose Work Policy, and Assign. Next, it is recommended to push a complete config file as well as a firmware to the latest code release for your devices. And we will click Perform Update. After our updates finish, that concludes our migration from HiveManager Classic to HiveManager. Thank you for watching.